Hello again, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Noble Father podcast. Today is November the 13th, 2023. We're still in the Remembrance Day weekend, and I just wanted to say thank you to those who have served, and I do appreciate everything it takes to be sitting right here, to be able to be doing this podcast for you all. And, this weekend I got to partake in cold dipping twice. And even that was something as I was sitting in the water and even before, of just thinking in my mind how grateful I am to be able to have that opportunity, to be able to live in the free world and not persecuted for what I believe, and to be able to take part in luxuries such as the beauty of nature, and not restricted in any way from doing that. And so, if you haven't already, take some time to really appreciate where you're at, what you have, the food that you have, the clothes on your back, the roof over your head, good friends, and maybe a government that's not overly, oppressive, wherever you're at, hopefully. And, this is something that, I'm seeing. We see it in our day. My parents are from China, and there is different forms of, oppression that, it's not good. So this exists in our world. Today's episode is going to be a little bit, let me say, the way I want to start this podcast today and the topic, I ask God, I always ask God, actually, every single podcast of, Lord, what do you want me to share about today? And this idea of this world being a physical representation of a spiritual world. I got in my head that, there's a lot of people that believe in the Matrix, and, whether they'll take the blue pill or the red pill, I forget which one was which. But it's true. This life that we're living, this physical life that we're living, is only but a representation of the spiritual world that we live in. It's a tryout. I call it a tryout because this physical existence is a tryout for our spiritual eternity, and what we decide to do and what we decide on this plane determines that physical eternity, that spiritual eternity. And a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, that's hokey. You're talking fluff." I don't believe in my heart. I don't believe in my heart that there's an absence of a creator, an absence of a higher power. I don't believe that two rocks slamming together, causing this giant explosion, put us perfectly in between the sun, and the perfect rotation of our earth allows us to have equal hours of day and night, and we're not swinging out of the orbit into unknown universe. And I don't believe that this physical Big Bang, let's just call it, created in us a spirit, created in us a soul, created in us morality, like ethics and morals, like that doesn't just come about through whether you believe in evolution or two rocks slamming together. We are created. We are uniquely created. If two rocks were to slam together the way that it did, we would be all the same. We would be the same cell organisms. We would not have personality. We would not have characters. We would not be each individually able to create anything. You put 1,000 people into a room and you tell them to write a story, chances are you're not going to have anybody write the same story ever. It just wouldn't be possible. And so if you want to say that mathematically we came about through two rocks slamming together that way, I would say you need to think about the math. This tryout that we're on right now, the decision that we make determines where we go. And the only decision that matters is what you do with your heart. Are you going to choose to allow Jesus to come into your heart, or are you going to welcome him into your heart, or are you going to deny him? If you deny him, well, then you better be ready for the decision. You will have to answer up to that decision. And, as a single person, even though I value your heart and God loves your heart and God values your heart, that decision will pain him. And that decision pains me. But I like to think because this is called the Noble Father podcast, is that you think about it from your children. And I've talked about this in the past. Are you willing to be wrong? Are you willing to be wrong about that decision? Because their spiritual eternity is also in your hands. How you decide and what you choose in your own life is in your hand. And so you hold that decision. In connection with this, where I want to go next with this is algorithms. We're seeing this right now. Wars that are being fought physically in other parts of the world geographically, they are very much information wars. This sounds conspiratorial, like I sound like Alex Jones. Yes, absolutely. But if there's anything that I've learned from news of recent events, let's just use Israel and Hamas as an example. That whole conflict. Algorithms feed you what you look for. So, if I am of the belief that Israel is right and they should wipe out terrorism in the region, and I'm just saying for an example, and I believe that this is what they should do, the algorithm is going to feed it. If anything, my phone is listening to me right now, so it's probably hearing what I'm saying on this podcast, and it's just going to feed me more things on that side to keep me on the platform. Now, here's the danger. You won't get a nuanced opinion. You will not see the other side because there's no reason to feed you that stuff. They don't want you to get off of the platform. They don't want you to stay off of it. So you're not going to get a complete viewpoint of the other side. Now, why would you want the opposing side? Well, you want the opposing side because you want to understand the position. You regardless of how you feel or what you believe, you want to have a nuanced opinion of both sides. There's a temptation that when you are on social media and somebody posts counter to what you believe, to remove or to block or to cancel, right? That's the word, to cancel the person. So you don't see it on your feed because it's so counter to what you believe. There's that danger. But the danger with that is you cannot, regardless of true or false, you should not remove. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't block out that viewpoint. You need to see the other side. Now, the reason I say this is because let's just say the algorithm feeds you lies and you make no practice of seeking the other side, the let's just say the truth. If you don't actively seek the truth and you just keep feeding your algorithm lies, then all you're going to be fed is lies, and you're going to continue to live in that way. That practice isn't only, it's of great benefit. You need it. You need to have a nuanced opinion. You need to have the other viewpoint. It's not about converting or helping somebody or changing somebody's opinion. Truth speaks for itself. That's the beauty of it. Truth speaks for itself. It's like what they say, right? It's what they say about love, right? If love is forced, it's probably crap. If love has to be forced, it's probably crap. And that's why the beauty of a relationship with God is so beautiful, is because it isn't forced. You can just imagine if an all-powerful God demanded your obedient and wanted you so badly, well, then he would just force you. You would not have free will. But that is not the case. You were created with free will to make a decision, and you have that right. We decided to rebel. We decided that we wanted to know the knowledge of true of good and evil, and we rebelled, and our eyes now are open to that, and now we're paying for that with that consequence. And so we must make sure that we always seek truth. And I say this because, not just because this is what I firmly believe, but I say it because I want my children to live in truth. I don't want them to live in lies. The interesting thing is, truth is always going to be belittled. Truth is always going to be put down in favor of information with intent. What is information with intent? Media is news agencies are a company. They are a marketing company. They make money off of the views of their content. So if truth doesn't sell and lies creates, it creates viewership. It makes the viewer want to listen, want to tune in more and stay on the platform. It's just like algorithms. They want to keep your attention. In keeping your attention, they get more money. Truth doesn't sell. As well as deceitfulness, right? You can make up a story. There are, right, and both sides, and you see this. It's so interesting because you can see how the other, let's just use the example of the hospital, that the rocket, one of the rockets from Hamas fell on the hospital. That immediate release of Israel bombing that hospital is a great example of this. Without any fact checking, without determining whether or not, it's amazing how the news agencies knew right away, like as if they were there, that Israel bombed the hospital. And as information released and as information came out, it was revealed that a failed rocket had landed on the hospital. But that information is already out there, right? But what sells better? What sells that idea that Israel is committing war crimes than spinning a rocket landing on a hospital into Israel actually bombing it? Absolutely amazing. It's a propaganda war. It's a war of the mind. And the Israeli side will say, Hamas did this. Hamas will say Israel did it. And if you're tuning into the algorithm of Hamas, then you're only going to get things of Hamas. If you're tuning into things of Israel, you're only going to get things of Israel. And I'm not choosing a side and saying one side is, more innocent than the other. Both sides have, from what I've seen, both sides have done things that is, let's just use the word heinous. Both sides have done things that are heinous. And it's hard. It's hard to be unequivocally one side or the other. Because you can't draw that line without drawing over somebody else's toe. You can't draw that line without upsetting somebody else. You can't unequivocally draw that line. And so this, as I was thinking about this episode, how do I speak about this topic? It's not an easy one because, there is objective truth. There is objective truth in the world. But in being unequivocal about objective truth, you can draw the line over somebody's toe. Somebody may believe that, yes, there is spirituality, but there is no God. It's not my duty to convince the person. It's not on me. It's not their salvation is not on. It's not for me. I'm not the one though I may be the one that speaks and lives the life to show as an example to them, their decision is on them. It is, the onus is not on me, it's on them. They have to make that decision. And so if truth is presented to them and it's in their face and it's given to them, they have the decision to make whether or not that is true for them. And I can only inform. I can only give what I believe, and I can only live my life as an example to the best of my ability to show what that means. Whether or not they decide, whether they say yes or say no. There's no animosity from those who reject. Each person in their own time. And only pray that God chooses to reveal himself to people. And if I get to be that vessel, then I'm all for it. And my care and my desire for not just the fathers that I serve, but those outside of it as well, is that I hope that they would choose truth and that they would seek truth and make the decision not just for themselves, but for the future generations that will come from their children. Because the last thing you'd want is to get to the end and realize that you'd made the wrong decision and you chose wrong, or you didn't make a decision. Not making a decision is also a decision. And so if you're listening to this right now and you don't know what I'm talking about, I would encourage you to change that algorithm. Do some research. Get some viewpoints of other people. You know, it does sadden me. I am a product of a prodigal son journey. Prodigal son journey is where I walked away from the church and walked away from my relationship with God, and took my inheritance and walked away and went to live. Went on wild living, I guess, is the best way to put it. I grew up in the church, and growing up in the church as a pastor's kid is very different from a kid just growing up in church. I saw religion growing up, and I see and saw and witnessed what religion looked like. And so I got to contrast that. I really got to contrast that. I can now say that not all churches are the same. Not all preachers or pastors are the same. Not all of them have a connection to God himself and draw that wisdom from God. Many will serve you a palatable plate, say something you want to hear, but not what you need to hear, and play their way into your heart and play God. And this is something the Bible does talk about, is that there are those that are out to deceive, like wolves in sheep's clothing. They're out to deceive. And that is definitely what the devil does, right? Right? Steal, kill, and destroy. That's simple game plan. And that's the fear, is that if your algorithm is feeding you lies, truth is always going to be attacked. Real truth is going to be attacked. Satan doesn't care about lukewarm Christians. Satan doesn't care about those who are already deceived. Satan doesn't care about lies that you're feeding, right? A kingdom divided against itself would not stand. And so why would he care about lukewarm Christians or those who are religious and those who think that by good intentions that they would get into heaven? Why would he care about those people? He wouldn't. Who does he care about? Those who believe in the one true God and those who have a relationship with one true God. Those who have the right algorithm. Those who are tuned into truth. Satan doesn't care about bad algorithm. If anything, he wants to keep feeding you that BS, things you want to hear, right? To keep you in your comfort. So you stay in the patterns. You stay in your comfortable place. Until one day you realize you've been sitting on the fence. You didn't decide. You didn't actively chase Satan. You didn't actively choose to say no to God. But in not making a decision, you've delayed the decision. Even in a delay of decision, you have said no to God. And so if you ever get to that place where we're at judgment and time comes to see if the Son recognizes you or knows who you are based on the decisions you've made, or whether or not you've allowed Jesus into your heart, you've acknowledged Jesus before the world, that decision will determine your spiritual eternity. And that's scary. That's very scary. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Even my worst enemies, I would not wish that on anybody. Least of all my children, right? If you genuinely care for your children, then you'd care about their spiritual existence. You'd care about their spiritual eternity. So I hope, these words are enlightening you. I hope it is outside of your algorithm and speaking to and feeding you truth into your existence. Because there's no way you can tell me that this life is just a physical one, and when you die, you become nourishment for the earth, and that's it. There's just no way. And I hope you tune your eyes to that. You open your eyes to that. And I pray, it's my heart's desire, I pray that God reveals to you spiritually in a very tangible way what I'm talking about right here on this podcast. So that's really all I wanted to share. I was going to talk into another topic, but it's probably going to be another 30 minutes. So I'm going to talk about it next week. I just want to say how much I appreciate you guys for listening to this podcast. Thank you for tuning in. As you can see, if you're over on YouTube, you can see my Patreon link there. This is all I do for work, and your support would greatly help me and assist me in helping more fathers. This is how I provide for my family. And also this Friday, I'm going to be doing a sleep out, a camp out, where I experience what it's like to be homeless for one night, which is but a fraction of what an actual homeless person goes through. But we'll be sleeping on the floor, potentially with a sleeping bag, and a tarp, some cardboards maybe, rain or shine. It's going to be an experience. And so if you're able to donate to that cause even, I will post the donation page on my, in the show notes, and you'd be able to donate to that cause. It's great to always put ourselves in a position to understand somebody better. And this is one of those experiences. And so, it's going to be amazing. I have no hesitations about it. It will be the worst sleep of my life probably, but it'll also be one of the best. Because the sooner we understand somebody, understand another viewpoint, the sooner we can better resonate with what they go through. And that is the message of today. And so, thank you for joining me. Very much value your listening to my podcast. And I really hope that what I shared today doesn't rub you the wrong way. I very much care for you as a physical being as much as I care for you as a spiritual being. And if you have any questions, please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to answer any of your questions. And just know that I don't have all the answers. There's just no way I have all the answers. But what I can promise you is that I will help you find the answers. And we can search for them together. I'd love to be an ally. I'd love to be an advocate and to help you on your journey, because it's not easy. It is definitely not an easy decision to make. And honestly, it counters the world. It counters the algorithms of the world. What we believe in as Jesus followers, Jesus lovers, is very counter to the world. And you will face a ton of resistance. But that resistance and how we decide and how we stand firm is the tryout for the spiritual world. And that is the message of the day. Anyways, thank you for joining me again. You can tune into this on YouTube if you did not know already. And also, if you're listening to this on the Apple Podcast app, please go over there and rate and review this podcast. Share it with your friends. You can also rate over on Spotify. This greatly puts this podcast before a greater audience. And I just want to say how much I value your help and support in this. Until next time, bye for now.